You're married and out of the house, so taking care of the elderly is our job.
Proudly puffing out her chest, my brother Nate's wife, Polly, declared with pride. I couldn't help but feel disgusted. Abandoning their duties and then speaking such words? When I glanced at Polly, Nate quickly interrupted.
Why that look? Despite being younger than Polly, do you think it's okay to be so insolent?
Nate has always been like that. Quick to assess those in a weaker position than himself, just to make himself look bigger. I no longer intend to hold back against such a couple. The two who oppressed Grandma need to face the consequences. I looked at Nate and Polly in turn, straightened my back, and made myself clear.
Then, let this insolent younger sister tell you. Thank you for your significant role until now. From here on out, that role is no longer needed, so please worry only about yourselves.
My words took the previously assertive Nate and Polly by surprise. My name is Rachel. I'm a 35-year-old working in freelance design. I used to work for a company, but decided to go independent for various reasons. I have a husband, and we live a relaxed life together. My husband, Oscar, runs a delivery company and is busy every day. We met while I was still employed at a company. One day, I was invited by a colleague to a party. That's where I met Oscar, drawn by his kind and sincere nature. We hit it off right away, exchanged contacts, and gradually found time to see each other more. After some time, Oscar confessed to me with a flushed face, and we started dating. After about 2 years of dating, we decided it was time to get married and went to greet my family. My family home houses my grandma Susan and Nate. Our parents passed away in an accident when we were in middle school. Since then, Grandma has been like a parent to us, helping us get this far. So, I shared the happy news with Grandma. Of course, she was delighted and welcomed Oscar. Amid all this, I can't forget Nate's sharp gaze. Nate, still harboring hostility, glared at me, and I, fed up, addressed him.
What is it, Nate? Is my getting married that bad to you?
I was supposed to get married first.
I don't know anything about that. Take this chance to think properly about your relationship with your girlfriend.
After greeting Grandma with our marriage, we next visited Oscar's parents. Our soon-to-be parents-in-law were very kind and happy for our marriage. Soon after, we got married and became husband and wife. A while after moving into our new condominium, Nate got married. Just before that, we had a family meeting with Polly, who would become my sister-in-law, and honestly, I didn't like her much. The family meeting was held at my family home, and while Grandma was bustling about for the festive occasion, Polly didn't seem to care at all. The meeting ended without incident, but as we were cleaning up, Polly came over. I thought she might help, but instead, she crossed her arms and summoned me to the living room with a haughty attitude. I wanted to postpone it since we were still cleaning, but Grandma encouraged me with a smile, so I reluctantly left. In the living room, Nate was lounging around, fiddling with his smartphone. Disgusted by his attitude, I sat opposite Nate and Polly. "What do you want?" I asked curtly, and Nate slowly sat up, muttering reluctantly. "From now on, we'll take care of Grandma." After saying just that and yawning widely, Polly took over.
I heard you've been taking care of everything until now. But now that I'm entering this house, and since Nate is the eldest son, it wouldn't do to have the sister take care of everything forever.
And with that, Polly continued to speak, but I couldn't help feeling utterly fed up, though I didn't show it on my face. Indeed, until now, I was the one taking care of Grandma. Nate seemed busy with work, often staying late at the office and sometimes even overnight. But my caring for Grandma was just about going shopping with her when I had some free time. Even over 80, Grandma's legs and back are strong, and she's far from dementia. So, it's not like I was really taking care of her. But now that Nate and his wife have offered, I suppose they'll take on such responsibilities. Nate works for a trading company, and Polly plans to be a housewife, so they should be able to keep an eye on Grandma. With that in mind, I entrusted Grandma's care to them. Life went on without incident. I stopped going out with Grandma because of Nate and his wife, but I would occasionally call to check on her. One day, after finishing a chunk of work, I decided to call Grandma for a break. Grandma answered quickly, and her happy voice made me happy too. "Hi, Grandma. Just got a break from work and was wondering how you're doing." We talked for a bit, but then I noticed Grandma's responses getting shorter. Although I hadn't been talking for more than 10 minutes. Usually, even after an hour, Grandma would still be lively. I started to worry. "Grandma, are you feeling okay? Everything all right?" After a moment of silence, Grandma spoke. "Well, I found a funny novel yesterday and stayed up late reading it. So I'm a bit sleepy. Sorry to make you worry." She chuckled, so I laughed along, relieved. Even though she's still spirited, Grandma is over 80, after all. It's natural to worry. But it seemed she was doing better than I thought. However, my relief was short-lived as Polly, who had been out, returned, and I could hear her calling for Grandma in the distance, sounding quite irritated. Grandma seemed to become restless. I decided to hang up, not wanting to trouble her. "Don't push yourself too hard, okay? You can always tell me if something's up." "Sure, sure. And you, Rachel, call me anytime too." "All right, then. Talk to you later." After hanging up, I got back to work, thinking about going out with Grandma again sometime. But then I got busy. Complicated cases piled up, keeping me so occupied I hardly had time for home affairs. Thankfully, these cases would likely improve the quality of my work and potentially increase my income once resolved. During this time, Oscar took care of everything at home. When I apologized, he said, "It's okay. Thanks to you, Rachel, I can focus on my work. I'm happy to return the favor when things like this happen." His smile was reassuring. As the busy days passed and I finally got a break, I realized it had been a while since I last heard Grandma's voice, so I decided to call. However, when she answered, her voice was much weaker and frilier than before. "Hello, Grandma? What's wrong? Are you okay? Are you feeling ill?" I panicked and bombarded her with questions. Contrary to my worries, Grandma tried to laugh it off and act bravely. "I'm fine, really. Don't shout so much. I've just been unable to sleep well lately, just feeling a bit out of it." Her voice sounded like it could fade at any moment, and I found it hard to believe her. Pretending to believe her for the moment, I continued the conversation, hoping to find the cause. "That's okay then. But, hey, Grandma. Sorry for not calling for a while. Work's calmed down, so how about going out somewhere with Oscar and me?" Normally, Grandma would quickly agree to my suggestions, but this time, she hesitated. I couldn't understand why Grandma, who always enjoyed going out, suddenly became reluctant. With a nagging sense of unease, I asked Grandma once more. "Are you really okay? Are you hiding something?" I'm truly grateful to Grandma. So, I want to be filial in ways I couldn't be to my parents. Please tell me anything. Don't you think I'd find it bothersome, not even a bit? Grandma listened to my words in silence. Then, after a brief silence, just as I was about to speak again, I heard sobbing over the phone. Surprised, I found myself staring at Oscar, who had taken a seat opposite me without me noticing. Oscar looked worried too, watching me closely. Then Grandma, with words so faint they might disappear, stopped my thoughts.
I can't live like this anymore.
I gently placed the smartphone on the table and switched it to speaker mode. Now, not just me, but Oscar could understand the situation too. Taking a deep breath to calm my quickening heartbeat, I spoke to Grandma.
Grandma, I want to hear more about it.
Then, through her sobs, Grandma slowly shared. Since moving in with Nate and his wife, they first took away her bank book and then stopped preparing proper meals for her. Nate and his wife would indulge themselves with Grandma's pension, leaving her only their leftovers. Polly had become addicted to gambling, using Grandma's savings for her leisure. Grandma, in a weak voice, concluded.
Polly went out, probably to gamble again. Nate won't be home from work for a while, and I don't have the energy to go out and buy something to eat.
Hearing Grandma's feeble words sparked something in me. As I clenched my fists in anger, Oscar gently wrapped his hand around mine and spoke.
Susan, you shouldn't stay there any longer. Let's live together from now on.
No sooner had he spoken than Oscar stood up to grab the car keys, extending his hand to me, still in shock.
Come on, Rachel. Let's go pick up Susan.
Spurred by his words, I told Grandma we were coming and then hung up. We rushed into the car and headed to Grandma's house. According to Grandma, nobody was home. Looking over at Oscar, I noticed an unusual sharpness in his eyes, something I'd never seen before. Oscar is always calm. Even when sudden problems arise at work, he first calms the caller before speaking gently. I once asked if he ever gets angry, to which he chuckled awkwardly.
Sure, things make me mad. But getting angry is like threatening. That won't make any relationship work. Unless you're ready to give up on someone, showing anger might be an option.
What do you say? Seeing Oscar clearly angry now, I realized he too thought of Grandma as a mother-in-law, much like I considered her as a parent. Oscar cherished Grandma that much. Upon arriving at Grandma's house, we parked right in front of the entrance and rushed inside. The house was a mess, nothing like it used to be. Overwhelmed, I snapped back to reality and hurried to Grandma's room. Opening the door, I found Grandma packing, and I hugged her before anything else. Grandma hugged me back gently, but her arms were thin, lacking their former strength. Feeling pained by this, Oscar spoke up.
Let's not dwell on the sentimentality. We need to pack the essentials and move as much as we can. Rachel, can you help Susan pack? I'll take care of moving the necessities.
Following his efficient instructions, Oscar left the room. I watched him go, reassured, then got myself together and began packing with Grandma. After finishing packing Grandma's things, we left the house with the luggage. I spoke to Oscar, who was arranging the car, then locked the house and got into the car. On our way to the condominium, nobody in the car spoke. Once we arrived safely, we first showed Grandma around. Her frail walk, a stark contrast to her once energetic self, tightened my chest. Nonetheless, we decided to have a slow meal with Grandma. Choosing easily digestible food for her long overdue proper meal, Grandma kept saying how delicious it was as she ate. Afterward, we let her rest in my room. Meanwhile, we unloaded the luggage and essentials we had brought from Grandma's house from the car and discussed our next steps. After a lengthy discussion, we came up with a plan. Although it didn't bother me personally, the thought of Grandma made my heart ache a bit. But the treatment from Nate and his wife had hurt Grandma far more, which was undeniable. So, with a heavy heart, we decided to proceed with our plan without informing Grandma. As night fell, we awaited a certain call. Polly's name appeared on the smartphone screen. I looked at Oscar and nodded, and he nodded back.
Hey! Where did you take the old lady? Don't you dare move her around without permission. And why are some things missing from the house? What's going on?
Please calm down. Where is Nate right now?
He freaked out when he found out the old lady was gone and said he'd come back right away. You wait, we're coming to get her back.
Is that so? Well, it's too late for that. We won't be handing her over anyway.
The audacity! Just you wait.
Sure, anytime. After hanging up, we prepared for our next move. To welcome Nate and Polly, who we expected to storm in. I started preparing coffee. Soon after, the doorbell rang incessantly, to my annoyance. Yes, I can hear you. No need to ring so many times.
Then hurry up and open it. We're getting weird looks from your neighbors.
Was that my fault? I sighed deeply as I let Nate and Polly in and checked the time on my smartphone. It was crunch time. As I was about to open the door to their knocking, I made an annoyed face before unlocking it.
Move it, will you?
Hearing the door unlock, Polly barged in, pushing past me with an irritated click of her tongue. After watching her go by, Nate followed, grabbing my shoulder with a strong grip that almost made me stumble. He shoved me aside as he entered. The force is so strong that I can't help but stumble. Then he throws me and pushes me away as he goes inside. I glared at Nate's back bitterly, taking a deep breath to suppress my anger, and followed them inside. Unfortunately for them, Grandma wasn't here. I had no intention of letting them meet after what they did, and I doubted Grandma wanted to see them either. The two desperately searched for Grandma, rummaging through the house like thieves.
Where did you put the old lady? We know she's here. Don't tell me you put her in a home.
Before I could reply, they shouted angrily. But as I remained silent, Polly, frustrated, lunged at me.
Say something. You guys don't need the old lady, right? What's so fun about troubling us?
Hearing her say we didn't need Grandma made my brows furrow. They seemed to think we didn't care about Grandma, just her money, which I couldn't let slide. I shook off Polly's hand and glared at them both before retorting.
How dare you say we don't need her? What kind of nerve do you have? You're not after Grandma, you're after her money.
As my anger reached its peak, the front door opened. Surprised, Nate and Polly turned as Oscar entered the living room. They seemed to have forgotten about Oscar's presence, caught up in the situation with Grandma. They looked at each other before attacking him just like they did me.
Hey, where's the old lady? What have you done with her? We know you're keeping her here. I've finished what I needed to do, and Nate's back, so hand her over now.
Oscar, unfazed by their aggression, smoothly replied. She's not here. She's at our office now, keeping our employees company. Confused by what Oscar was saying, the two just gaped and tilted their heads in bewilderment. Unbothered by their reaction, Oscar took a seat at the living room table, gesturing to the chairs opposite him with a smile.
Well, let's discuss what happens next calmly, shall we?
Sitting across from us and Nate's couple, Polly was the first to speak.
So, what's the big idea of bringing the old lady to your office?
Could be considered kidnapping, you know? They acted as if they were the victims, which infuriated me. But I tried to regain my composure and began the conversation.
I'd be tempted to kidnap her too, considering what you've done is far worse. What are you talking about? What we've done? We've been taking care of the elderly, just as a son and his wife should.
Then how do you explain the mess at your house? It looked like a junkyard. My counter left them speechless. Their attempts to blame us couldn't erase the scene we'd witnessed.
Besides, we've heard from Grandma. You took her bank book as soon as you moved in together and barely provided her with proper meals. What kind of care is that?
I angrily presented what we had learned from Grandma, my anger rising as I recalled her treatment. Trying to defuse the situation, Nate interjected.
You weren't informed, but the old lady's been showing signs of dementia lately. Everything you've heard from her is just delusion.
Considering how coherent and strong Grandma had tried to be for our sake, it was impossible to believe she had dementia. My frustration peaked as Nate and his wife continued their excuses. I pulled out Grandma's bank book, flipping through it as I asked.
So, even if Grandma did have dementia, how do you explain these hefty card transactions?
Pointing to the transaction records and looking at both Polly and Nate, their earlier bravado disappeared as they quieted down. After a moment of silence, Polly muttered,
The old lady spent it.
Suddenly, a loud bang resonated. Looking towards the noise, Oscar had slammed the table and stood up, having been silent until now.
I took what was necessary from that house and saw numerous collection notices scattered on the floor, all addressed to you too. I also accidentally saw a bill listing luxury cosmetics. Do you really think someone starving and wasting away needs those?
Oscar's voice started low but grew louder with anger. After pausing, he shouted at Nate and his wife.
I had a bad feeling and opened some collection notices. They were mostly for gourmet food ordered from different regions. You were eating that while giving Susan leftovers. Don't even try to say that organic lettuce, parsley, or the fat from luxury meats doesn't count as a meal.
The room went silent. Not just me, but Nate and his wife had never seen Oscar this angry. Remembering when I had asked if Oscar ever gets angry, I was struck by his current state. Overwhelmed, Nate and Polly could only stay silent as Oscar declared. Tomorrow, we're taking Susan to the hospital to assess her condition. Once we have the medical report, we'll report the abuse to the police. Be prepared for that. As soon as he said this, he forcefully got them up and started pushing them towards the entrance. But Nate and Polly resisted, begging for forgiveness.
Police? No way! I could get fired from my job. Please spare us. Is that how you treat your own family? Heartless.
I slammed the table and stood up, yelling with all my might.
It's you, though. As soon as you got married, you and Polly conspired to drain Grandma's savings and exploit her pension. And to top it off, 3 meals of leftovers? If that's not heartless, then what is?
I glared at them with all the force I could muster, and Nate, perhaps taking offense, retorted.
What's with that look? You think it's okay to be so cheeky when you're younger than Polly?
Nate has always been like that. Quick to judge those in a stronger position and hide behind them when it suited him. I had no intention of holding back against the likes of Nate and Polly anymore. I looked at them both in turn, straightened my back, and made my stance clear with a formal tone.
Then let this cheeky younger sister tell you. Thank you for your significant role until now. From here on, that role is unnecessary, so please just worry about yourselves.
To my words, Nate and Polly, who had been so aggressive up to that point, were taken aback.
I forgot to mention, but you can't enter that house anymore. We've arranged for our company's employees to clear out the place. At Susan's request, we're selling the house. Huh? What are you talking about, us?
Nate's convenient thinking, expecting leniency after all this, brought me back to a state of calm. Taking a deep breath and steeling myself, I declared.
Get lost!
Overwhelmed by my intensity, they froze in shock. Seizing the opportunity, Oscar quickly showed them out. Locking the door, we could hear their shouting from outside. Realizing the late hour, we decided to call the police to take them away. The next day, after picking up Grandma from Oscar's office late at night, we took her to the hospital. While we were confronting Nate and his couple, Grandma had a great time with the employees of Oscar's company, clearly lifting her spirits. Back at our condominium, Grandma, understandably tired, quickly fell asleep. Exhausted, we collapsed into sleep as well, but come morning, we were even more worn out than Grandma, who should have been in worse shape. As expected, we received a diagnosis of malnutrition at the hospital and then went straight to the police station, where Nate and his couple had spent the night. Explaining the situation and showing the medical report, we were told their actions constituted assault. Following our complaint, they were arrested, marking a definitive end to our association with them. Grandma gradually recuperated and is now fully recovered, becoming a source of healing at Oscar's company. While I work, she hums tunes and takes care of the housework, and during breaks, she keeps me company with casual chats. May you live a long, healthy life, Grandma.